They say when a baby is born, so is a mother. But while you are there to help your baby grow into the person he or she is meant to be, who is there to help you? Many women feel lost and alone when they become mothers, wondering, who am I now? Sometimes it feels like the transformation from woman to mother is as radical as a caterpillar's transformation into a butterfly. Did you know that inside the chrysalis, the caterpillar literally turns into goop before it rearranges itself into a butterfly? This podcast is about the goop, what soul transformation looks like as you transition from being a woman to a mom. Your baby's growth matters, but yours does too. You're not alone. I'm your host, Brittany Ming. Welcome to the Motherhood Metamorphosis.
We're talking to Shelby Spear today. Shelby is a mom empowerment coach, author, speaker, and freelance writer. Her writings are featured in guideposts all over the internet and on her blog at shelbyspear.com. The book she co-authored with Lisa LaShaw, How Are You Feeling, Mama? You Don't Need to Say I'm Fine, was a 2020 Publishers Weekly Book Life Award Inspirational Spiritual Category winner and Grand Prize finalist. That's really cool. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's a privilege. It's an honor to be here. Appreciate it.
I'm really excited about our conversation, especially since when we were emailing back and forth, you shared a ton of topics we could have talked about, but one particularly stuck out to me, and I was wondering if I could read what you wrote.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so you said you could speak to paying attention to the stories we are telling ourselves and carrying into marriage and motherhood, and realizing how so much of what we believe about ourselves and others is often very untrue and disempowering. Also, the danger of overcompensating and trying to do all the things for our kids that our mom didn't do for us. And I was like, wow, that really resonates with me. And something that I didn't realize until years after I was into motherhood, not something I realized at all during like those very formative, maybe first 5 years of motherhood. But I can see looking back how much pressure and how much untruth I was speaking into my own life. So I was wondering if you could tell us why this topic is close to your heart and tell us your story about this.
Yeah, well, same for me. Before it even, I had an inkling that this was going on. I was 34 and my kids were 10 and 6 already at that point. So I just wasn't self-aware. I wasn't self-actual. I just didn't understand, wasn't in the know of how powerful our thoughts are, and that truly our thoughts create our reality. Like what we're believing, how we're perceiving ourselves, the world, other people, everything, it impacts the experience we're going to have, because what we think dictates how we feel dictates how we behave, react, respond. Right. And then we have the experience from that. And then that loop will continue. If it's a negative, disempowering loop, it's just going to keep continuing because life will keep mirroring back exactly the way we're seeing it. Right. And so I'm super passionate about talking about this, because when it comes to the stories we're believing about our worth and our value intrinsically, and when we bring that into marriage and mothering and all of our relationships, it just prevents us from really thriving and experiencing, I think, the life that God wants for us and has for us and desires for us. So one of my favorite scriptures is from the Beatitudes, when Jesus says, "You're blessed when you get your inside world, your mind and your heart put right. Then you'll see God in the outside world."
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, that's like, says it all to me, because I truly think that everything is an inside job. Individually, how we want to experience life starts in here, how we want to experience our marriage, our family, our relationship, and then going out to our community, the world, it's in here. How are we perceiving things? Because if this is not healthy and we're not seeing ourselves the way God sees us, or the way that's true and authentic, we're not standing in our truth, everything's skewed then. Because that's if the arc of the story that we're telling is got that negative bent, and like you said, like for me, I I didn't see any of that,
Yeah.
for a long time.
Yeah.
So,
So when you mentioned this, and I was thinking about the stories that I tell myself, I remember thinking when my twins, who are my oldest kids, were about to start school, I just
mhm,
had this horrible crisis in my own conscience about what kind of schooling I was going to use, because I was homeschooled growing up. And in this insular homeschool community where every mother I knew homeschooled her children, and this narrative was being just woven around me that good mothers homeschool their children, and especially good Christian mothers. And here I
exactly.
was, this mother who was Christian, but I didn't want to homeschool. And I thought, I must not be a good mother. And so that story I was telling myself really just crippled me. And I did this
Mhm,
whole like research project and like to
mhm,
try to justify my feelings. And I did this like 40-person homeschool survey blog series about, do adult homeschoolers want to homeschool their children? And ultimately it was very mixed. And I ultimately decided to send them to public school. And that was a great decision for
yeah.
us.
Yeah.
But I had to really work through and untangle that story
Mhm,
about what it meant to be a good
mhm,
mother. So
right.
when you think about this, can you think of a story that maybe illustrates this idea in your own life?
Oh gosh. Yeah. I've got several. And I think the core for me, what I brought into, my adult life was trauma from my childhood.
Mm,
So I had sexual abuse from a family member who should have been the person loving and protecting me
mm,
for years in my adolescence. And that coupled with, I had abandonment issues because my biological father left when I was a baby. And I didn't even know this. I had a dad that was really a stepdad, and I ended up finding out by accident. I was looking at a wedding album and saw myself in the picture, and I'm like, wait a second, this doesn't add up. So just to kind of package all of that, those big, heavy emotions that I was feeling as a kid
mm.
turned into these kind of macro stories about my, you know, worthless. I felt powerless. I felt like I was bad, shameful person, all these things that, again, that I wasn't self-aware of, that I
Right.
was consciously thinking, but that was what I embraced. And so I brought that in. I noticed it started to like rear up when I met my husband, because we met and I was only 20 and we were engaged at 21. I wasn't even out of college yet.
Mhm.
And you start to learn who you are as a part of someone else.
Yes.
So being in that relationship with him, it started to trigger some of these feelings. So if the story that I'm powerless, I don't have a voice, whatever, if we would have a disagreement, I was feeling like, oh, here this is happening again. I don't have a voice, but now I'm an adult and I'm gonna use my voice. And so then I would have behaviors that weren't healthy. But I didn't understand them, and
Yeah.
so I didn't know why this was happening. And then we had kids right away, 3 in a row, and I was 27 with 3 kids. And
Mhm.
then I'm finding out, who am I as a mom? And
Right.
so the motherhood story was, I'm going to do everything the opposite of what I experienced. My kids are never going to feel abandoned and rejected and worthless and like they're bad. I'm going to overcompensate, thinking, I have I've set this bar for myself of perfection
Yes.
practically in mothering.
Yeah.
And that, um, and then you find out that doesn't really happen.
Right.
And life
What? You're
is
not
hard.
perfect?
Motherhood is hard. And it's like, oh no, but I had yoked my value and worth to the success or failure of my kids.
Yeah.
So I felt like a good mom if they were thriving, if we were getting along, if this was happening and that was happening, because I needed I needed that to feel loved and to feel lovable.
Yes.
And so again, I didn't know all of this was happening until I had a real crisis. I had a dark night of the soul, and I was so depressed and so out of control with my emotions, and I had to get help. and thankfully I got the help I needed. And that started a journey. I was 36, I'm 51 now. And it's just been a nonstop journey of unwrapping, unfolding, unlearning, retelling a story, one truth at a time about who I really am as a wife, as a mother, as a human being. And it's been incredible to see. It's just layer after layer, because you don't realize until you realize. and
Yeah.
then and then it can change your life. And it's changed my life drastically. I can't even hardly remember that version of me
Yeah.
back then. But it's never ending.
It is. I know. You want to think like, okay, when am I going to arrive? And then you're like, no, this is
Yeah,
a journey. I'm still on it.
I'm still on it.
Yeah. I think a lot of times we want to, when we become moms, like we have this image, like you did, of what you want it to be, like what experience you want your children to have and who you want to be to them.
Yeah.
And sometimes we think motherhood is like this blank slate, like I have a new beginning, and we do, but we also bring everything we are into that journey.
Right.
And I think that it's hard. Like that's hard, but we have to recognize that. We have to recognize the stories we're telling ourselves, and we have to realize that our growth, the growth of our children is important, but our growth as a human being is also so important because they are symbiotic at times. Because if we stall out in our emotional, spiritual, mental growth, it's going to affect our kids.
Right.
And that can be both scary and empowering.
Right.
So sometimes it feels like this very delicate balance, because you can get paralyzed by that fear. But I think also that fear can be a motivator to be like, no, I need to help myself so I can also be a growing, thriving person to help my kids grow and thrive.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, because, I'm a firm believer that how we love ourselves impacts how we love our children. Like, because we can't give away what we don't have.
Right.
But if we know our thoughts are so powerful and that what we think affects our emotions and affects our behaviors, the good news is we can change the way we think, change the way we look at things, so the things we look at change. So we can adopt a more positive mindset and choose to believe a different story on our own free will, and really work hard to believe that, because when we believe it, we'll see it. It's not the other way around. We've got to start in here. God's truth about us is planted in here. Like, we are worthy, we are good, period. And when if we try to kind of say, this is the story I'm telling, but let me match it up against this truth. And if there's a disconnect, something's not right. What do I need to readjust or change? Because we want that for our kids. We want our kids to believe all these things about themselves, that they're worthy and they're valued, and they have gifts and talents, and they can do whatever they want in life. We build them up, but I mean, if we're not also building this up, then they can see too how we're treating ourselves and how we're, so that modeling that is so huge too. It's not just what we say,
it's what we do. Yeah. And so like those affirmations we give to our kids, like, you are worthy, you're smart, like you're capable, you're brave. If we feel like, if I turned all those affirmations onto myself, like, what is it that I'm feeling? Are you feeling like, ugh, like, no, I'm not? And I think that can give us a lot of truth about what we are believing, because we are a precious human being as mothers. Like, we are worthy, we are capable, we are brave and full of life. We are life bringers and life givers, but we have to walk in that truth. And if we are not, then you're right. It affects both the way we parent, and it affects the way we see ourselves and our own growth. When you're on this journey, because it's been like you've been walking this path for a long time, and you did say, it's hard to know who I was back then. But as you think back, when did you start to feel like a healthier heart, healthier mind? Like, can you think of an instance where you knew that you were getting better, that you were healing inside?
Yeah, I mean, after I started going to therapy to
Mhm.
really unpack everything from my past, the trauma, and just really see it for what it was and understand that it didn't define me, that I'm
Mhm.
beyond what happened. Life, when I took the mindset that life doesn't happen to me, it happens for me. So how, you know, what, where have I grown? What are the blessings that I can see, even though, all these things had happened? And I started to kind of come out from underneath that cloud of feeling of unworthy, and feeling so much shame, and feeling like I was a bad person who deserved these things to happen, because I could handle, you know, situations that were sticky in my marriage or with the kids. I could better, like, if something went wrong, and if we were having an issue with one of the kids, instead of taking it all on and blaming myself and being all this heavy emotions, I could just start to take a step back and say, okay, I'm recognizing that I'm being triggered. This
Mhm.
has nothing to do with this current situation with my child. It has everything to do with what happened in the past. That awareness
Mhm.
was when I knew I was moving in the right direction, because before I didn't even have that. I was
Yes.
just stuck in the story.
Right.
And then I could say, all right, you're doing this again. We need to take some time, do some work, think about it. There's more healing that needs to be done.
Mhm.
And again, like, I started at therapy at 36. And when I turned 40, I knew that it was like this threshold for me. I want to be a changed person, mind, body, spirit, through and through. I made a pact with myself at 40. I'm going to rehaul everything. I just want to feel good. I want to stand in my truth as best as I can and feel good about the way I'm mothering, and how I'm being a friend, how I'm being a wife, all these things. Because there was, it's an ongoing process. We learn more and more as life throws different scenarios at us.
Mhm.
And then I've become obsessed with, like this whole paying attention to stressful thoughts. I've gotten really good at, it's not just the big things. It's not just the, am I worthy? Am I enough? Am I smart enough? Am I capable? But it's the everyday stressors of how we respond and react because of what we're thinking. Like, my kid's always disrespectful. If we believe that, and we're constantly running that narrative, and we don't take a step back and say, well, maybe there's something else going on here. Is
Right.
it true? Is it true that my child is this way? Or is it just, I'm I'm stuck in this pattern? And when I believe this, I act ways that I don't want to act. And
Mhm.
if I didn't believe it, if I shifted it just a little bit, I would change. We change together. So it's been, and my kids are grown now, so they're all out of the house. They're in their 20s. But I'm still, even in this empty nest space, having to heal more and process more, because there's a whole different ball game of hard things with your kids at this age, because you're not directly involved. You're on the sideline, and you're watching, and you're observing, and you're seeing hard things happen, and praying, and it's very challenging. It's been a huge adjustment. And I've realized, I started to go back, oh gosh, if I had only known this about myself, if I had parented different during that age, maybe this wouldn't be happening. And I have to say, wait a second, don't go back there again, because
Yeah.
I did my best
Yes.
with what I knew. And some of it was not great. It was ugly, and I was broken, and I didn't mother the way I would have wanted to now. But
Mhm.
back then, I wasn't. I did what I could,
Yeah.
my very best. And believe me, I don't think there's a mother out there who isn't trying to do everything right.
Yeah. I think
And
so
then not
too.
beating herself up. But this bar that we set is so high sometimes. And it's just, we have got to give ourselves more grace
Yeah.
to our kids. Listen, we didn't have perfect childhoods, and we're finding our way. everybody's got a story. Everybody has stuff they have to overcome. But the more we can really question the stories we're telling and ask ourselves, does this align with what God would say about me? And even what my own kids would say about me, like they see such a better version than we're willing to admit or see in the mirror when we look in the mirror. So
yeah, I've had that. I remember I was just totally had that high bar for myself when my twins were little, and they were 5 before I ever had another child. And they would say like, "Oh, mommy, you're the best mommy in the whole world." And I would just feel this horrible feeling whenever they said that. I didn't feel joy or like a warm fuzzy or anything. I just felt like, "Oh, you don't know how much I'm feeling." Like I just would just really get down on myself when they say, "I love you, mommy. You're the best mommy ever." And instead of like letting that permeate into myself and being like, they really love me, like they really see me,
really, really love you.
yeah, I just was just like, no, I just pushed that away. And that like really, I wish I hadn't done that. And so I think that letting myself feel loved by my children has been a journey. And that's so, I don't think I've ever had anybody else talk about that, like letting your children love you and
and believing it
and believing it. Yes, because I think that is a measure of grace in our life, because a lot of times we say things like, give yourself grace, don't be so hard on yourself. But I think that grace can be in the form of our children and saying
100.
yes, like, and very little things like the hug, they run back from the front door to hug you before they go to school because they just needed that hug, or the I love this dinner, mommy, when you made hot dogs. And instead of thinking like, oh, I made hot dogs, I'm such a, like, I should be feeding them chicken and roasted potatoes, like thinking like, I really made them a dinner and they appreciated it. Like that's a measure of grace. And so I think taking love and applying it as grace to ourselves can be a way that we can give ourselves grace.
Absolutely. I think so much of that, what you were mentioning about even the dinner, I made hot dogs and they're saying how great it is, but you're thinking I should have made this, all the nutrients, 5-star meal to give them healthy food. That's because that's what society is saying, or someone else is all this, the noise of what. So it's not just even our stories. Sometimes it's all the other stories that are out there, which there's a million of them. Pick a million people and you'll get a million opinions. But social media makes that so hard because of the comparison of what we're just inundated. And when my kids were young, there was no social media. So I didn't have that. I was doing a stellar job of still beating myself up, but I feel my heart aches for how much pressure it feels like that's out there to do the right thing, whatever that
would be.
And I just think we really have to trust in our intuition and let God speak, because every child is different. Every family is unique. Every scenario. And like you said, we bring in from our upbringings, how we process things, and everyone's got a different upbringing. Everybody's got a different everything, belief system, experiences. So it's very interesting. I think when we really take a step back and kind of consider the fact that we're all in this space of trying to reconcile reality to what we're thinking and believing, and everybody needs the grace, everybody needs the pass and the compassion to figure life out, because we're all trying to figure it out every day alongside our kids, alongside each other, and we serve ourselves better and have a much easier time if we could just give the leeway for learning and figuring it out. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think that the idea of, I think our kids can teach us so much about making mistakes. And we think, okay, I'm potty training right now, my 2-year-old. and she's had a lot of potty successes, but like she went in number 2 in her underwear yesterday.
Yeah.
And I am like, it's okay, it happens. But I remember thinking when I was potty training my twins and they were having accidents all the time, I was beating myself up about what I was doing wrong. And I can see that growth in myself, not just like I've become better at potty training.
Right,
Like,
right.
I'm seeing like that growth in myself to say, this just happened. It's not that I'm doing something wrong. Like, it just takes time. Like, your growth takes time. So as your children are growing, if you have a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, you've only been a mom for 2 years or 3 years. Like, you're a beginner. So give yourself the grace to make mistakes and realize, hey, I'm growing. Like, I'm new at this. You don't have to have everything figured out, and you're going to get better at doing this over time. Like, nobody is born an expert parent. Like, even people who write books about parenting are just an expert on their own experience. Like, they don't have it all figured out. And so you don't have to have it all figured out right now either.
Right.
So just be patient with yourself and pay attention to your own growth, because that's going to serve you and your children.
Right. 100%. And I believe my kids are my greatest teachers. I say that all the time. And I think part of it is being open to learning from our kids, to not think that we know what's best always, because so many times I have not known. I mean, especially as they get older, they have their own true north and inner compass, just like we do, and to trust that and evolve along with them. And as my kids have become adults, they've taught me things that, I mean, they have literally shifted my life in so many ways to help me see the world from a better perspective and a clearer lens, and to kind of disassemble and deconstruct some things that I just never had ever questioned, and why I felt that. I just, well, this is the way I feel. This is what I believe. This is how it is. And then I was like, oh, well, maybe, why do I, so you get curious, because kids are curious. And I've been in awe of my kids all along the way, with how much they've been able to teach and inspire me and empower me, truly.
That's awesome. So, I love hearing your story, and I love hearing about growth, because I think sometimes we can feel stuck. Mm-hmm. And when we hear stories about growth, we can think, yeah, I'm still growing. Like, there's still hope for me to move forward.
Absolutely.
I loved our conversation, Shelby. Thank you so much for this. This is really special. So to end, I have these 10 rapid fire questions that are just fun.
Okay.
So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Number 1, which Disney princess would you want to take out for coffee?
Oh my gosh. Cinderella.
All right. What's one thing you must have on your nightstand?
A book.
What was your go-to treat after they went to bed?
After they went to bed?
Yeah.
Oh, like, so when they would say, Mommy, I can't sleep, like a treat like that?
No, like, what would you eat? Like, what would you save for, like, after they go to bed? You're like, I'm not.
Oh, for me. Oh, I would get into all the chocolate. Yeah, yes. For sure.
Too. My husband will regularly bring me chocolate bars, and I like hide them in the very top of the fridge and be like, no, you cannot have this chocolate. It is mommy's chocolate.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Heels or flats?
Flats.
We have been, all the interviews I've done, we've all been flats. So I'm waiting for someone to say heels, but I am also a flats lover. I'm just like,
I would really say barefoot, because that would be my preference.
I love that. All right. Last show you binged and loved?
Ted Lasso.
Oh, okay. So we need to get Apple TV. I've watched like the 2 free episodes and we really liked it, but we need to go ahead and pay for the subscription. But I know that it's very popular. So I'm glad to have the recommendation from you as well. All right. If you run out of this, you have to go to the store.
Bananas. Because I have to have them in my smoothies.
Yes. I actually bought bananas today because we were out. My kids, I will buy like this huge bunch. And I'm like, I really am looking forward to a banana tomorrow.
That's
and, like,
hilarious.
And they're gone. I'm like, I never got a banana. You guys just ate them all. All right. Who makes you laugh?
My daughter.
Do you have one daughter and two sons?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's special. Texting or talking?
Texting. On the phone, I mean, I always prefer one-on-one conversations, but on the phone, I don't know. I guess I prefer talking. Texting is fast and easy, but I like the conversations.
Yeah. What are you looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to the holidays with my family. My kids will be home.
Yeah. Finish this sentence. Motherhood is
blessing beyond measure.
That's beautiful. All right. If you all are interested in following Shelby on social media, you can find her at shelbyspear.com, at courses.shelbyspear.com, and on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest at Shell Spear.
Yep.
Also, Shelby, we had emailed about your book, and you said you're working on a memoir. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, I've actually written the memoir.
Okay.
I finished it a few years ago, but it's funny how I think it needed to sit and kind of steep for a little bit, because I'm just making some adjustments, just different ways I want to say things, but it's really all about this changing the stories, because I spent so much of, my life believing these things, and it's just how I was able to unwrap each layer to get to my true self, to really reclaim my authentic love identity, and stop buying into the disempowering lies that were dictating my life. So that's what it's about.
That's great. Well, when it comes out, I'll definitely share it, and I'm looking forward to reading your words.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much. I really loved our conversation today.
Yeah, me too. All right. Take care.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Motherhood Metamorphosis. If you've enjoyed this episode, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to this channel so you never miss an episode. Next, tell your friends. Podcasts are a slow growth type of social media, so promo works best when it's from person to person. If you know another mom who's in the goop right now, send her a text of encouragement and the link to the episode that is speaking to your heart right now. If you have a story about your own matrescence, the physical, emotional, hormonal, and social transition that occurs when someone becomes a mother, please leave a comment below. I want this channel to be a place where women can build community about the challenges and joys of their own motherhood metamorphosis. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope it encouraged you and gave you some good food for thought. If you ever have any questions, comments, or you'd like to reach out to me personally, you can email me at brittanyaming@gmail.com. Oh, I have a pile of books. I'm in my bedroom right now.
Oh, yeah.
I have all these books.
Yeah, I like to read.
I see your beautiful library behind you. You're only allowed one banana per day. Just don't eat all the bananas.